Hey, what's going on, everyone? Yep, got another video for you here. So, yeah, you see this a lot, and if you're like me, one who constantly wades through the sea of gaming chatter, through whatever internet channels we like to frequent, you can notice a pattern of people who call for remakes of old games, for the multitude of reasons, both good and bad. Many want remakes because these are beloved games. They played way back in the day. And would like to see them given a fresh lick of paint. As well as placed on their current modern platform. As most people now can't be bothered. To break out their old consoles, or perhaps don't have the room, or even just don't have them anymore. There's so many reasons. But you also see a large group of gamers who, to no fault of their own, weren't around during the times these games came out, and feel no real compulsion to jump on, say, eBay, and you'll probably have to pay large amounts of money for even the most commonplace retro games, but also at the same time many of these gamers can look at these older games and think,
One ugly motherfucker.
This isn't surprising, of course. This mostly affects early 3D games. A time where the industry was first jumping into 3D, and some developers nailed it on the first go. While others clearly never. And along with that, some games had controls that even back then just didn't work that well. But there were a wealth that did and still do to this day. But as a gamer in the modern age, growing up with games that look like Uncharted and The Last of Us, unless you had some influence in your young life that got you playing games from multiple generations before, you can't blame many gamers for looking at something like the original Tomb Raider, naturally comparing it visually to the modern Tomb Raiders, and feel nothing but repulsed by what they see on the screen. But if you're the type of gamer who could look past such visual barriers, the great games of old became and still are classics for the reason, because back then they were at the peak of what gaming could offer. They were and still are the peak of what actually no, not the peak of what gaming could offer now, but they still are the foundations of modern gaming, and gameplay wise can still offer things that could still surprise even the most elite graphics lover, just as long as that person doesn't completely and utterly sit in that ignorant bubble of hate, as I like to call it. The reason why I bring this conversation up is how people have reacted to games like the recent Resident Evil 2 remake, and more importantly for this video, I feel how people are reacting to the latest footage of Final Fantasy 7 remake. Although I've actually stopped calling this game a remake now, as I feel it's strayed much further into the realms of reimagining, at least from my point of view. But I think that's also an important factor here. From my point of view, outside of raw visuals, although that's always going to be subjective, based on people's preferences with art styles. But if we're talking about pure polygons here, from my point of view, how is someone meant to decide or even openly declare that this is the definitive version of Final Fantasy 7? If one, they have never played the original, or two, remain closed. If they remain closed-minded to why the original game was heralded, as much as it was upon release. Even I suppose even that state of mind, could still be applied to someone who picks up the games today and might moan about the blurry backgrounds, the slow loading, the change up in art style consistency, something that Final Fantasy 7 done a lot, to be honest, and then might some people might even compare it to another game they did play at that time, like Panzer Dragoon Saga as an example. A game that was fully 3D and something I had a brief conversation with someone on Twitter about. I personally find it easy, to put my head into whatever generation of game I'm playing and judge it purely based off that generation that it came in. Also what the game's doing, how it's performing, all based off that generation and console that it was on. That's easy for me because I lived through those generations and I know pretty much what was possible, during those times. But for someone who never or has not gone back to try and experience it, that's a much more difficult task, I feel. I think this is also perhaps important, where that additional mindset and even knowledge for gaming as a whole plays an important part in how we view every game that we play. It's easy to look back at Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1 today and laugh at how it looks and plays. But before that game released on consoles, what other JRPGs done what Final Fantasy VII done from a technical standpoint? I think the simple answer is none. Final Fantasy VII, introduced to the world a game on a scale that was unseen, before coming out of Japan. Back when Japan were the kings of the video game world. A video I'm actually desperate to do actually. Final Fantasy VII, it merged real-time graphics with pre-rendered CGI backgrounds almost seamlessly, which gave off a fantastic cinematic experience that came to define not just the PlayStation 1, but the PlayStation brand overall. A cinematic experience with an unforgettable soundtrack, incredible characters, a fresh and original world, all boosted by a budget that made it what people call now a AAA game. Throw in the incredible 3D models of things like the summons and other boss battles, and you had a game that set the standard for JRPGs from then on. It's not just nostalgia. I always stress this on this channel. It's not just nostalgia. Final Fantasy VII is a 32-bit masterpiece. That's just facts, really. And the reason why it still persists today is because the story hasn't changed, the characters haven't changed, the controls haven't changed. It still remain fully functional for the game. The battle system hasn't changed. It's still fully functional as well. The only thing that's changed is perhaps people's mentality when it comes to how games look, along with their patience for a time when games were slower, but also within the fame of Final Fantasy VII, all the little things that people remember, and without a doubt made what Final Fantasy VII became well known for. Whoever hasn't played the original Final Fantasy VII and jumps into this reimagining for the first time, I think they need to understand that they are not playing Final Fantasy VII. It will not give them the full understanding of why this classic title is being remade or why it's famous to begin with. Because like I said, I consider this Final Fantasy VII Remake now to be more of a reimagining based off everything I've seen. And then you have to ask yourself, what happens if they don't like this version, this new remake of Final Fantasy VII? Will that cause them to class Final Fantasy VII as a whole as overrated? Because if such a game is remade with modern tech and still fails to captivate on all the levels people claim about the original, does that make them conclude that Final Fantasy VII was never that great to begin with? And what legacy does that leave in the modern world of gamers who can, for whatever reason, bring themselves to play what we now class as retro games? I've seen the same response with movies, where Hollywood will remake and or reimagine things like RoboCop for the modern audience, and those who haven't watched the original, watch this new film, call it trash, and then refuse to even entertain the original. What legacy has that left for RoboCop? Although there's only one truly class RoboCop film, and I can tolerate the sequel, but avoid the third film, people, and certainly don't touch the remake, which I hated. I mean, of course, with remakes, it's never an easy thing, made harder by the fact that older games increasingly become harder to get hold of, especially on original hardware, and there's, without a doubt, some remakes that indeed make the original, in some cases, find a pass up, I feel, but even then, there's still magic in some classic games that I feel many gamers should try to experience and try to appreciate. Even with the new Link's Awakening, remake coming up, what was achieved on the original Game Boy is nothing short of breathtaking, and still to this day, that game is completely playable and a truly must-play title. Made easy to get hold of as it's digital on the Nintendo 3DS. Something that many older games have now become. I suppose relegating the need to go out and play them on original hardware and software copies. Although I'm pretty old school, and I still feel that most classic games need to be experienced on original hardware if possible. But I'm also a realist and know that's not always possible. We of course need to be mindful of what remakes and originals we're talking about here. Like I said, some games have been remade and are arguably vastly better than the originals. Something like the Metroid Zero Mission, which is a remake of the original Metroid on the NES, or again, Samus Returns, which is a remake of Metroid 2 on the original Game Boy. Personally, even I've struggled to go back to Metroid 1 and 2 as I do feel that they are dated in many ways, and I did play them back then, but still not horrendous or unplayable. But without a doubt, I vastly prefer the remakes and would push people more towards those than the originals. But anyway, I think I'm done here. A random conversation, before I start talking about Breath of the Wild 2 again. So final thoughts. For many classics, I do feel that people should try the originals first if possible, as it will give them a greater understanding and appreciation of what came before and why some games indeed are worthy of having a well-made remake or reimagining to see those games anew or in a slightly new light. But at the same time, also show them why these games are classics. But I can also understand how some people might struggle to go back to some older games, even if they are considered true classics. But what are your thoughts? As always, leave a comment, and I'll get back to everyone, as I normally do. I noticed I got a few new subscribers. Stick around. I'm glad to see you here. Make sure you comment, and like I said, I will reply to you. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for listening. Take care, all, and peace.